So I'm going to start tearing down the BSA Lightning that I bought recently, second hand. Gun looks okay. A few disappointing bits. The scope, it's alright. It's Chinese, it's nice and clear. Not convinced it's holding zero. The mount is pretty terrible and it bears all the hallmarks of having been chronically over tightened. The main one being, if we undo this screw here, by the way these were pre-loosened, you can see the shiny aluminium there, so that screw's bottomed out and has been properly torqued up. Also the actual mount bolts, yeah, just about turn them using the screwdriver. I actually have pre-loosened the other two and had to get this little tool out in the end. Very good little wrench, but also doesn't put too much pressure on anything, so hopefully you're not going to break anything. So we'll keep going, I'll keep tearing it down. I'm going to do this one in sections, it's not going to be the usual one take video, so stick with me and let's see what we find. Just another little note there, you can see that the Lightning should actually come with a rail already mounted on the gun. That's been lost in the passage of time, been replaced by this amazing eBay mount. I've got to share the name, I mean this is so blatantly a rip-off. Focus. Yeah, that's real helpful. Focus. Anyway, it's not going to focus. The manufacturer is Sebon, like Devon, only with an S, because that's totally different and not at all infringing any copyright. So, and that's the timer because I'm also cooking my tea. So let's take another break. So again, as I mentioned earlier, this rail, these screws, it's not going to turn. So this is when my little toolkit comes in handy. By the way, not sponsored by any of the manufacturers. You may see the brands there, like there's a certain one beginning with G. It's just my bit of kit that I'm using. It's a very good bit of kit, so I'm going to use it in the video. This is me waffling while I fit the bit into the driver that I mentioned earlier. There we go. Oh, wait. There we go. Let's see how much force we have to put onto it. Still got it the wrong way around, idiot. It's very out of shot. It's got a ratchet there that you flick from side to side. So let's see how much force is on this one. Gee! Whew. That's incredible. Word to the wise, this scope mount's got an end stop pin in it. You don't need to over torque them. You really don't. Bear in mind it's aluminium as well. You're just going to strip the threads. I mean, come on guys. Use your noggin. Anyway, I'll carry on taking this apart and we'll see how we go. As mentioned earlier, look how chewed the aluminium is around the bolt hole there. Chronically over tightened, and you can actually see on the scope tube, well, if it would focus, you can see a horizontal scratch where it's obviously moved in there under recoil. Just use decent mounts, simple as that. I really hope it picks it up. I don't think it's going to. Look at the sticky mess. The adhesive pads in, oh there we go. And the sticky mess on the underside of the scope tube. Yeah, good mounts, you don't need that. So yeah, I think this one's destined for the bin, or I might list it on eBay, someone might want it. So yeah, let's keep going down that rabbit hole. Again, look around those holes, how chewed the metal is. That's been so over tightened it's untrue. It's just untrue. I mean, ladies and gents, please just don't do it, please. The one saving grace of this mount is I was removing it was that I saw it actually had a stop pin in there. You can see accessible there. There's the grub screw. Brilliant, except that it hadn't actually been wound in. So instead of, I must admit that the end of that looks very damaged. Instead of winding that out, filing it off, getting it nice and smooth, and then winding that into the arrestor stud hole on top of the gun. No, sod that. Just tighten those screws up until you could have hung off them. Just, I mean, why? Call me anal, call me what you will. Whenever I'm removing a set of scope rings or dismantling them, I always lay the screws out in the order they came out of the actual mount. I don't know why, I just do it. Just one of them things. So now that the scope mount is out of the way, let's start on taking the gun out of its stock. So we've got the usual forward stock screws pair, which are invisible. They're hex drive. And the trigger guard is a couple of torque screws. Now my amazing gunsmith toolkit had the one for the front. However, it didn't have a big enough one for the back, so it's Halford screwdriver set for the win. Am I allowed to say all these brand names? I don't really care. I mean, hey, if they sponsor me, that would be superb. But again, they're not sponsoring me. I'm just recommending bits of kit that I use that are great. So there we go. So the reason why I'm taking this trigger guard off completely is that I'm not a huge fan of the shape of it, if I'm honest with you. So I'm going to try actually replacing it with this generic one. I know it's plastic, but I just prefer the shape. If that doesn't fit, or if it doesn't quite look right, I'll take the one off of my Mark 6 BSA Meteor and stick that on, because I think that really will look good. And if that does look good, then I'll buy a brand new one of those. So yeah, let's carry on with this. Just a little word of warning, the rear stock screw had a big lump of thread lock on it, and that proved quite tight. So yeah, make sure that your Torx bit definitely fits that screw, because if it doesn't, you're going to risk stripping the head or slipping and damaging the stock. So just be careful with that one. Okay, so that plastic trigger guard might be a bit of a fail. Doesn't really sit properly how it should. It's a long way up at the front and on an angle. It's a shame really, because if it'll stay in there, it's actually not bad looking. No, it looks terrible. Okay, well never mind. I've got a Mark 7 Meteor stock that's reserved for a project at some point, so it can go onto that, and I'm going to try that one off the Mark 6. Well, that's the trigger guard off the Mark 6 Meteor fitted. I think I'm going to go back to the metal one. We'll just live with it. Oh well, never mind. The noise in the background is the extractor. Sorry about that. Still cooking tea. So I've undone both of the front stock screws now. And the gun did quite a satisfying little pop when I did it. So I'm now positioning the actual action of it to make sure it's on the rest. Let's take the stock off. Something to always watch for when you're taking air rifles out of stocks is that little bit of black plastic there. Absolutely essential for the cocking stroke. So make sure you don't lose it, because they are prone to just falling out. Another one to watch out for, this little part on the cocking linkage here. If I had some light, it would really help. Just slides off, and mine just fell off. Fortunately, fell into the little basket area here, just down like that. So yeah, really worth dismantling your air rifle on one of these rests and keep it clear in there, so that if it falls down, you don't then think, Oh, what was that? Is that part of the gun? Oh, I don't remember. Where does it go? Also, take photos as you're going along. I'm now going to start doing that. I'm going to sign off the video now. So we've taken it so far. This is part 1. Part 2, we'll take this trigger off and we'll replace it with a brand new unit, which, wow, certainly comes with quite a lot of stuff and very reasonably priced. I've also got the rail that was missing there, and I'm debating whether or not to buy a Sports Match one piece to go onto that, because you can now buy a Sports Match low. Now this is on here, there's a threaded hole there that then gives you an end stop for your actual mounts that go onto this rail, so I will be using that. I'm just going to get a bolt out of my own stores, use that, wind it down, and then that can go into the arrestor hole on the action of the air rifle. Right, so to conclude, one of the reasons why I'm replacing the trigger is because it's terrible. I think someone's messed with it, or there's something wrong with it, because the trigger on this gun is diabolical. I mean, bad, like really bad. The adjustment screw is at the back here. It's quite short. Now I've heard that if you replace it with a longer one, that way you can actually adjust the first stage pull, but there doesn't actually seem to be any way, despite what you may read or hear or whatever, of actually adjusting the tension of the trigger. So what I'm going to do is replace this trigger unit with the brand new unit over there, and then I'm going to play with this unit and I will share with you what I find. Hopefully some kind of answer to help out Lightning owners, because no matter what the reviews say about these guns having amazing triggers, well, certainly I've not experienced that so far. The trigger is awful.